Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Planning Commission podcast. Today's episode, Mayor, I like the sound of that, with Mayor Erin Mendenhall. The Planning Commission podcast is a discussion you never even knew you needed. Sit back, join us for a conversation between a couple of old friends and their guests to talk about all the things that are happening in this wide-ranging profession called planning. Our views are our own and don't reflect those of any national planning organizations or any particular public agencies and only belong to us. So read your commission packet, know your Robert's rules, and enjoy this, the Planning Commission podcast. All right, let's get our roll call. Commissioner Smith.
Present.
And Commissioner Kostelik.
Hello, I am here.
You are here. All right. Let's go over our real quick agenda, our discussion item, our whiskey pairing, our interview with the mayor of Salt Lake City, Erin Mendenhall, and then our lightning round. Commissioners, can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
There's a second. Gosh, quicker on your feet. Let's go, boys.
Gonna
Let's
dust
go.
that off.
All right. Just as a reminder, you can find all our past episodes and website at our website, www.theplanningcommissionpodcast.com. Go to our YouTube site, Apple, Amazon. Give us a like and subscribe. We appreciate that. Let's jump into this. We got a good interview today, and I want to make sure we maximize our time with our wonderful guest. So our discussion item to the two of you and myself, here's my quick question to get us going here. If you were mayor, what action would you take to improve your own planning department? You are in charge, large and in charge. You're not just the manager. You're not the director. You're the whole dang kit and caboodle and the mayor. What are you going to do? What are you going to do to make that planning department better? Jess, you got one?
I'm ready. I want to
Do
do two things, and these are very high. So I have a magic wand. My magic wand would be, I would do whatever it took to increase maintenance budget. And I would, if it doesn't already exist, I would make sure we had an asset management program. Those things are super techy and kind of boring, but they're so important. It's frustrating when you work in a system and you don't know where things are, you don't know what state of repair they're in. And really maintenance is the everyday thing that as a citizen I think about. I'm just like, I just want this sidewalk gap fixed. I want this, it's so not sexy, but it has such a huge impact on everybody's everyday life. So that's what I would do if I had a magic wand.
No, I don't. I think you're right. There's not a lot of ribbon cutting for maintenance projects, right?
Maybe we can make it fun.
Woohoo! We made this thing a thing again. Yes, look at us go. But it's so needed, right? I mean, it's totally needed. So, all right, Don, what do you got? You were a manager. You threw your keys across the desk because you were the manager that day and mad. So now your chance to make everything better. What were you gonna do?
Well, I have a Robert's rules thing. I have a point of clarification. Are we talking about a strong mayor system or a weak mayor system?
Oh, for crying out loud. Yeah.
Let's do strong. Let's do strong mayor.
Yeah.
I just think about my time in Chicago where it was technically a weak mayor system, but everything for the last 100 years has been the opposite. No, I think my first thing would be like, do the political thing, throw the bums out on that. No, I would get down to questions about measures of effectiveness. And I know with what Mayor Mendenhall in Salt Lake is working on, and similar to where we are in Boise with zoning code rewrites and making missing middle housing legal again, we have things like the housing issues are so multivariate and so many influences on it. And I want to be able to ask the questions, hey, let's pass this policy and then let's look back every 5 years or so and look at real measures of effectiveness on that, transportation investments, what have you, not to get too wonky on the performance-based side, but I think even in the discussions today about changing zoning codes and getting away from single family stuff, there's not a lot of comprehensive analysis done on it to know which levers are actually working. So let's figure those things out.
Your hashtag planner nerd is showing y'all.
You guys are going deep. Dang. Did Mayor Daley know he was a weak mayor structure? Was that?
Yeah, I mean, every council vote was a 49-1 because there was this wonderful council member on the north side, Helen Schiller, that just voted against everything.
Way to go, Helen. Way to go. All right. So I'm going to go real simple on mine. I'm going to make it brief. It's going to be Walking Wednesday. I believe in my heart of hearts that every planner needs to walk their community, all parts of their community on a regular basis. See it, feel it, smell it, taste it. You know what I mean? And I've seen way too many times people in the planning arena in particular who get locked down to that cubicle or their office, and they never even see the place that they're planning for and never get a chance to interact and see things firsthand. And to me, that's just such a invaluable, part of what could be our week to week sort of activities. Everybody talks about a walking meeting. I don't know when the last time I actually seen anybody carry one out though, right? Like, let's do it. Let's make it happen. But all right, those are our at least quick three. So Don, whiskey pairing, what do we got here?
So if I could go back in time and find the whiskey I wanted to pair, I would harken back to Chicago, because we had these drugstores there called Osco. And in a place like Chicago, they can sell liquor in, the grocery stores and what have you. So Osco had their own store brand of liquors. And this is like bottom shelf stuff. So it'd be like a white label with the Osco, and it would say gin, vodka, Canadian whiskey, bourbon. And I remember looking down on it and saw that it was distilled in Salt Lake City, Utah. Which in 1998, I thought was like really, really ironic, given my experiences with Salt Lake at the time. So I couldn't travel to Chicago and get Jewel Osco. So I went something better. I went with the High West whiskey done in Park City, pairing of that. So we'll go local with that. We're going to take this camping with us this weekend on our journey down to Salt Lake for a concert. So yes, we'll go with High West.
That's a good one.
There's some good things happening in Utah. I'm telling you, we've seen it firsthand, and we'll get into some of that in a minute. But yeah, that's a good choice. So, all right, real quick before we get into our guest, last thing here, our partner at Planet Edison, just take a quick moment. And we want to take a moment to thank our friends at Planet Edison for supporting today's podcast. If you're looking to sharpen your urban planning skills and advance your planning career, head over to Planet Edison Courses, where they offer over 300 courses on cutting-edge planning topics and skills such as parking reform, missing middle housing, equity analysis, and climate resilience. You should know by now. Go visit courses.planedison.com/PC10 to take advantage of an exclusive offer just for listening to the Planning Commission podcast. And now, without further ado, we would like to introduce our guest, Mayor Erin Mendenhall. We have been hounding the mayor for several months now. If you've not followed Mayor Mendenhall on Twitter, you're missing out, because I can't recall too many mayors that I've seen who are in it, man, in it to win it, and all over the community, rolling up her sleeves, getting after it. I think it's safe to say a fan of planning, fan of good planning, maybe that's a better term. Yeah. So without a doubt, man, I'm so excited. So Mayor Mendenhall, thank you for joining the Planning Commission podcast.
Thanks for inviting me, commissioners. And sorry, it took me a little while to get here, but I'm so happy to join you today.
Well, you got a few things going on, needless to say. So let's just start with you. Take a minute if you can. Tell our audience about you. How did you get into this? I know you're an advocate. The air quality piece was a major component of your motivation and other things, but you take over, tell everybody who you are.
I am a 42-year-old mother of three, air quality activist turned advocate turned policymaker here at the most local level. And if you have not been to Salt Lake City, you should shut this podcast off and come here right now. Because
That's right.
or take us mobile with you. But Salt Lake City also exists as a part of its beauty is this bowl-shaped valley with the Ochre Range of mountains on the west side and the beautiful Wasatch Mountains where our ski resorts exist on the east side of us. And that topography creates a bowl, and we tend to pool and accumulate pollution. So it's sometimes surprising that we have some of the worst pollution in the nation at different times seasonally. So, I mean, PM 2.5 in the winter time, the visible stuff that you can see, and then ozone, or rather VOCs that cook in the sunlight in the summer into ozone in the very hot times. And it is so bad, and it was so what felt inadequately responded to about 15 years ago, that I had no like formal training in air quality science, but I jumped in as a volunteer, started tabling, and joined a little like burgeoning nonprofit, and ended up co-founding a newer nonprofit that worked in the policy realm, and realizing after protesting outside of meetings that I really wanted to be at the table, and being invited into those meetings, I was more effective talking through a science lens. And that's what the nonprofit I co-founded, called Breathe Utah, did for a long time. And people encouraged me to run for city council. And at that time I was 32, and I got tattoos, and I didn't have any money, and friends didn't have money. I didn't have a graduate degree. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to get elected. But that at that local level, especially in a blue dot in a red state, I knock doors. You got to work. You just you listen. You got to be open to changing your opinion by caring about the people who you learn from, your neighbors all around you. And I got elected the first time I ran. I did it again. So I served 6 years on the city council here, and 9 years on our state air quality board. I just wrapped up last month. And I ran for mayor in 2019. So I'm in my 4th year as our 36th mayor here in Salt Lake. And I love it.
Mayor, I was thinking about, you're just talking about your people, and you've got to listen to the people. And I'm thinking about how you're housing people in Salt Lake. And so what's going on in Salt Lake City with regard to housing affordability, housing availability, and homelessness?
Yeah, we've been in a crisis that has been growing. We've been tracking it for more than 17 years now, a housing crisis. You know that we have the fastest growing state in the nation, rather. We are about just over 18% growth. Actually, I think Boise is the next fastest growing area by most of those measures. And at the same time, we've had a housing supply that's been unmatched, or rather not matching the growth demands here. We used to have most of our population growth coming from our own kids, because some of those stereotypes are somewhat true in the state of Utah. There's a lot of big families here. But now we have a larger net in migration happening along the Wasatch Front, because this quality of life is getting out. People want to come and live here, especially since the pandemic, where we see the ability to work virtually and people wanting to be close to trails, ski resorts, and 5 national parks. So we haven't been able to keep up with our growth. Yet in the city itself, in our 110 square miles, we've been trying to diversify the types of housing types that we allow. So back in, I believe it was early 2021, we allowed tiny homes for the first time in our code. We funded through the donation of our land with a long-term lease, the first tiny home village for those who are currently chronically homeless in the city. That'll have 60 tinies coming online next year. They've begun the work the nonprofit has on the land there. And we've been adding thousands of units, and it's basically just multifamily. So our downtown core has been around 4,000 to 4,900 people living in the central business district. By January of 2025, we will have doubled that number downtown. So really becoming an 18-hour downtown city is happening to us right now. And one of the other cool things I'll mention with the downtown vein is that we've had the strongest post-pandemic recovery of any city in the country by, I think, 3 different studies now since fall of last year through this spring. 135% more people coming into Salt Lake City than in 2019. And where we had a majority office economy, now entertainment has surpassed our office economy. So people are coming down to have a good time, and they're coming down to live. And I love that.
Is anything
That is
happening
awesome.
on that front with offices converting to housing to be part of that, or is that still a little separated? What are you seeing there?
No, we are seeing conversion of some offices to residential, but there are a lot of cranes. There's a lot of buildings going up downtown. And, you know, part of those trade-offs have been the loss of some of our beloved small businesses. Other parts have been, you know, lots that have been flat parking lots and totally underutilized. So we're trying to work dynamically. We developed, actually before the pandemic, we started a gentrification mitigation plan, which they said, that's a horrible name. Well, you need to change that. So we call it Thriving in Place. And it's basically
Love it.
out. Yes, the nerd words don't work. And you can check it out. I think it's thrivinginplaceslc.com. And we've got 21 strategies there to help keep our communities stable amid this growth. And where we cannot keep people housed or in their communities, there's strategies for helping them find new housing in their same communities, et cetera. So we're doing a lot, and billions of dollars in permit valuation in the last every year for the last 3 years.
That's so cool. I'm a downtown girl. I try to live in the downtowns wherever I'm at, and it's not always as vibrant as you want it to be, but I think that, you know, every single one of us counts. So you've got to live where you believe in it, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, shifting gears too, to kind of moving people and keeping them safe with that growth. I kind of joke at times, especially with Pete Buttigieg as transportation secretary. I think there's probably a limited number of mayors that could actually like pick out a protected bike lane from a multiple choice quiz there. And I suggest you're one of them. What's the city working on? I see all the postings about speed limits and you out at Vision Zero and street reconfigurations. How's that meshing with both the growth and what you were talking about on the housing front?
One of the great things that we can thank Brigham Young for from when the Mormons came into the valley and said, this is the place. He set up these tremendously wide streets. And as planners, as planning commissioners, you probably know this, but that in a downtown Salt Lake City street, Brigham laid it out so that a 6-ox cart could do a U-turn. We have 132-foot wide downtown streets. We've got a lot of land to work with. It's unfriendly in a way, you know, for pedestrians to cross that big of an expanse when it's full of active traffic. But on the other hand, we can fit bus rapid transit now on some of our streets. We have a green loop concept that we are, which you need to come check out when you come into town, by the way, on 200 East between 300 and 400 South, right by City Hall, where we've pushed out all the cars to just a single lane on both sides, put badminton, cornhole, a bar, a little concert stage, 190 trees. And the concept would be a rectangle linear park encircling the downtown. It would add 5.5 miles and 60 acres of park, and we could get up to 10,000 trees in the downtown core. Why do I bring that up about safety? Because in Salt Lake City, we had 27 people die in auto-related accidents last year. I'm talking pedestrians, cyclists, and car on car as well. And that's a just heartbreaking, tragic number. And it was echoed throughout the state of Utah and in some cases around the country. So Vision Zero is the only appropriate response to that. Like, no, they're not a single death is acceptable. And when we think about the typical traffic study models or the tools that our traffic engineers use to evaluate whether or not a hawk signal or different beacons are appropriate at different pedestrian crossings, for example, or a protected bike lane, those measures don't feel appropriate anymore. They don't feel aggressive enough. When we look at 27 people killed in the city in 1 year, we're a city of 200,000. That's a terrible amount of death.
even thinking of putting trees in the medians of those streets and what that does for safety versus 50 years ago, we looked at it the opposite. It kind of brought to mind, I think you could do another effort or a contest. What are 4,000 things you could do in Utah streets other than drive because of the room you have on those? So I think, yeah, you guys, I think it's hard to look at, especially for East Coast folks, and understand a blessing that you now have in those streets, because you have so much room to repurpose them for all modes and for safety, and don't really have to get into the right of way piece of that. How has that been in terms of convincing old guard folks, others in this new vision?
I think the hardest part has been that there's so much other growth happening in the downtown area that the inconvenience of having to slow down for one block is like this, straw on some people's camel's back, that there's so much construction and that begins to feel annoying to people. But I think that there's more reality that resonates, such as there's no space downtown for us to add another significant size park. We're doubling that downtown population. We have more people coming into the downtown to spend money and have a good time, and we want that. But where people go and how they get around, we want small businesses all over this. We want people to know their favorite spot for a cocktail, dinner, leaving somewhere else for dessert, know where they're going to go listen to some live music outside, and then maybe hit another bar and have a good time, and have this be a chain of engagement across the city.
Yeah.
So can I take this a step further though?
Go for it.
I think this is one of the solutions that America needs. I think that the biggest challenge that we face as Americans right now is that too many of us believe that we have nothing in common with half of the country. And I think that is one of the most destructive paths we can take as a nation. And when we share things with people that we don't know, but who live here in our community, we have a better opportunity and a likelihood of caring about people who see the world differently. Public transit's one of those things. I think, even like corner markets and places where you get to know people working there, you bump into the same person from down the street. But our public spaces are one of the best opportunities to do that. And cities are where it's going to happen. Cities are part of the solution to what I think our country needs right now, because we need to share more. And in places like this, where we have more households with dogs than with children, where those dogs go to the bathroom every day is something cities need to be planning for. And not only that, but you have a beautiful little park outside of your house that you cross the street and you get your cup of coffee and you let your dog do their business and you read the news. You're going to love your community more when you have those spaces. You're going to care about people more. So I know it may sound too hard of a reach, but I think it's very real. It's tangible, and it's helping.
Well, your passions obviously are shining through, and your motivations for being in a position of leadership are front and center. And that's of no surprise to, I think, the three of us, and preparing, let me try that one more time for this episode. So you also kind of teed me up a little bit on a follow-up question on that same line of thinking, with respect to keeping people safe, mobility, and those types of things. Without giving it away too much, I wonder if you could just talk briefly. You wrote an op-ed recently about the I-15 corridor not too long ago, and the proposition of widening, right? And this is something we talk about a lot. And in that op-ed, you talked about lots of different motives about where, the state might be coming from, but you pushed back pretty strongly on that and gave, I think, some pretty good, really some good food for thought for a lot of folks. And I'm wondering if you could just kind of touch on that.
Yeah, thank you. Our state legislature, which has a different value stack, maybe not entirely different values, but a different order. when it comes to moving people. And I think moving people is one of the most important factors in determining quality of life and the future of any region. They've told our Utah Department of Transportation that they need to address the future population growth and connectivity with an expansion of I-15 through a lot of the northern Wasatch Front, including Salt Lake City and up into counties north of us. And they've given them money to do that. The premise here, though, which does rely on UDOT's consideration of the regional transportation plan, which has other modes of transportation, is not ambitious enough, in my opinion, when it comes to rebalancing for more regional and local public transportation than we have been willing to put on the regional transportation plan. And, you know, this boils down to these association of governments and these local meetings that I think the general population doesn't know about or doesn't have the patience to kind of stay with and stick through. Planning commission meetings are more popular for sure. But when when it comes down to like, oh my gosh, I-15 is going to expand and it may take out dozens, even hundreds of homes in communities who have already been divided by this infrastructure 50, 60 years ago. It's going to be more destructive, create more air pollution, more noise impact, and not necessarily give any of us a better opportunity to change our mode of transportation. Then we need to reconsider. And I think Salt Lake City, in some ways, it sees ourselves as maybe 20 years behind where Austin is today. And we don't want to end up where Austin is today, no offense, Austin, when it comes to not having enough public transportation built for the population that they're holding right now. I think in the city, we're doing that work of, we're subsidizing our transit agency to run our local buses more frequently and on the routes that Salt Lakers need, not just our regional commuters coming in. And it's a great partnership, but this needs to happen in a much bigger way throughout the system. And
well, it amazes me
question
that
the premise of it.
Well, yeah, like you meant talking about the trajectory with Austin. And I think even if we just take the West where we sit in Boise, we try to sit here and go, Salt Lake is the next level in our trajectory. And you're probably looking at an Austin or a Phoenix, and a Phoenix is looking at an LA. And it's like, we haven't learned those types of lessons yet, especially when we talk about short of funding, not being able to maintain the system we have, yet the policy stance you talk about at the state level is kind of antithetical to all of those notions about fiscal responsibility and limited government and things. So it's kind of fascinating to see that occurring there. I know Chris or Jess on the next subject with climate and environment.
Yeah, I'll go ahead here. So Mayor, I just turning the page a little bit here. You mentioned air quality obviously is the whole reason why you started this, right? But you're obviously dealing, not you personally, well, sort of, but the whole region. And really what people, I don't think in this entire country quite grasp is the implications of what's going on with the Great Salt Lake and just the water levels getting lower and lower and lower. And, this alkaline nature of things and the destruction that could come from it. And it's a major topic that I don't think a lot of people quite grasp. So on that topic, I'm curious, what is Salt Lake trying to do with regard to, your own, not only water quality, but preservation and conservation, and then we've had this real wet winter, and a lot of people are going, oh, well, look at that, it's cured. But we know that just one winter does not make a trend per se. So hopefully, you can share some of the thoughts that Salt Lake is probably leading on, I'm guessing.
Yeah, we are. And the reality of the Great Salt Lake Basin. So draw that big circle around all of the waterways that drain to the Great Salt Lake. Municipal use within that is a very small fraction. Agricultural use is more than 80% of the basin's drainage and diversion. But even with that, Salt Lake City is not the entirety of the basin for municipal use, but we are leading out on conservation. Salt Lakers are conservative by nature when it comes to this environment that we live in as a high desert. And over the last 2 summers, although we've put some drought regulations in place, we didn't put any restrictions on our residents or water users. We did for ourselves as municipal government, but we conserved 2.9 billion gallons of water last year alone.
Wow.
And this year we're stepping it up with a drought surcharge for the highest 2 of 4 tiers of water users. So everybody's sort of in the bottom tier during the winter, but as soon as our sprinklers kick on, those who are using the most are going to see a surcharge, and we'll keep that in place until the drought subsides. Even though we had an epic winter this year, it really was off the charts, and we're actually at the peak of runoff right now. So we're knocking on wood that we can keep all of the storm drains clear as it piles down the mountain right now. It only prolonged the life of the lake by 2 years. Last fall, the researchers said we have 5 years until a full ecologic collapse of the Great Salt Lake. This epic winter gives us now only 7 years. And so we know, I mean, this winter is not likely to happen again next winter or the winter after. We can't rely on Mother Nature to refill the lake. So we've got rate increases every single year, which are planned because we're building a brand new water treatment facility. They've been on track for several years and they're going to continue. Drought surcharge, we're changing out inefficient systems throughout the city government, libraries, parks, golf courses. We're doing a full audit and evaluation, and Salt Lakers are stepping up. So we hope also that the measures the state is taking in relation to agriculture step up as well.
Wow. So I want to ask about kind of a big picture question is, how does a place like Salt Lake City compete on a national stage to really attract jobs and people? I mean, you were talking about that huge growth. What are you doing? What's your secret?
We have a pretty amazing tech industry here. We have one of the fastest growing healthcare innovation sectors in the country, and a very high proportion per capita of life science jobs. It's this quality of life that people want, and the talent that these companies are trying to attract are pretty attracted to this place. Another thing people, I think, may be surprised when they come to visit Salt Lake is that we have a lot of historic neighborhoods. Even right next to our downtown core, we have intact historic neighborhoods.
Wow.
And there's a lot to do in our region here with our Utah Jazz, fantastic arts and culture scene here. And I think the potential of us getting a Major League Baseball team, talk of an NHL team, all are just kind of symptoms of this leveling up that our city's doing right now. And you'll meet Salt Lakers if you come here who will tell you, I came to ski for 6 months 27 years ago, and I just could never leave. It might be something we put in the water, but no, it's not.
So, Mayor, I got to follow up on that one if I can, because I mean, as a long time 40+ year fan of the now, I don't know why we call ourselves that, but the LA Angels, and I know the Bees, the AAA team, and them moving away, and that fantastic ballpark with the, I mean, this incredible backdrop, right? And it's just such a beautiful spot. But what's that?
It's the best view in baseball.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. And so, but now here you are, you're right, you're thrust into this now massive land use discussion, and you're excited about it. Go ahead, hit us.
You're gonna love. I know we're heartbroken about the Bees leaving, but in a nutshell, the company who owns the team, who also owned the Utah Jazz until a couple of years ago, acquired. They're going into development, and they acquired 1,300 acres undeveloped here in the valley, which is basically phenomenal, unprecedented. There's nothing left like that, and they're building this ballpark, that they'll move our bees there as sort of a cornerstone of this new community. But how unique is it that we have 13.5 acres now, right next to our downtown, right at a tracks train stop, with a historic neighborhood as a part of it, that we get to reimagine. And actually tonight, so today is May 31st. And tonight here in Salt Lake City, we are hosting a big public event and announcing the winners of the Ballpark Next competition. Because when the Miller Group announced that the bees were leaving, I wanted to capture that national story that would come out of it and pair it with an idea generating competition. Now, this isn't what is going to be in the RFP necessarily at all, but we had never thought about what could we do if there wasn't baseball here. And so tonight we get to announce that. We had a resident category, a post-secondary, so college category, and professional. We'll have 3 winners, and you should tune in to Salt Lake City Ballpark Next and see who's coming out. So big.
We'll put that out on social media and stuff as well. So when we started this episode, Chris asked, if you were the mayor, what would you ask of your planning department? What have been those asks, or what's your most favorite or least favorite thing about planning and what you've been able to unearth in your time as mayor and council member?
Oh, I think our planning division is amazing. You should follow Nick Norris on Twitter if you don't. He's our planning director. And I don't have complaints about Salt Lake City's planning division. I mean, we have limits put on what we are able to do to an extent because of our state legislature. And maybe Boise can relate to that a little bit. But my advice to them has always been to be bold. And there may be no idea too big for us to consider because of the growth that we're experiencing. Like this idea of a linear park that takes over 5.5 miles of downtown streets and puts almost 10,000 trees. Like that's the kind of scale we're talking about. That's what's appropriate right now for us to consider as a community. And they're bringing big ideas like that, like our affordable housing overlay. That last year generated more comments than we maybe have ever seen on a topic. And that'll be going to our city council next year, that tries to build geographic equity into our affordable housing while respecting those historic neighborhoods. So anyway, our planning division in Salt Lake City rocks.
So I got to ask, we'll turn it over to the lightning round in just a minute, but in your time as mayor, what have been the things that have surprised you the most about your time in the office? Maybe things you just totally weren't expecting as you ascended from, and you were on council for a while, so you probably got exposed to, a good number of things, but not everything, right? And so I'm sure a few things have kind of snuck through. Anything that comes to mind?
Well, I chuckle because, come on, I came into office in January of 2020.
Well,
So
yeah. There's a little thing that happened in March, April.
Not only that, we had a 5.7 earthquake about, I don't know, 10 days after I closed the city. Then we had a hurricane strength windstorm that September. We lost 3,000 of our biggest public trees in a day, and thousands more in private land. I mean, it was a year. So that was a surprise. But I guess the unknown on top of that was how resilient Salt Lakers were. They are tenacious, creative, and character's not created in those moments at all. It's just exposed. So whoever you are, whoever your community is revealed in those crisis moments. And we had a lot of them, and Salt Lakers are amazing.
Good. Well, a lot of things were thrown at you, and you're still here. You're still fighting. So
I still want to do the job. That's pretty amazing. I'm so grateful that I like the job still.
That is amazing.
All right. Well, Mayor, we're going to turn it over to our lightning round. We're going to have some fun for the next 5-10 minutes or so and ask you totally just nonsensical questions and get to know you a little bit more outside of your role as mayor. So I'll start off a couple quick ones. Red iguana,
Ah,
You
you
have-
took mine.
Do you have a favorite mole at Red Iguana?
Yeah, Amaro.
Oh,
See?
that
But get,
was-
Wow.
get the mole sampler and they'll bring you
Oh,
a
yeah.
plate with all the
Oh.
dollops.
They had a strawberry crema mole as the special when I was
Oh
through
my
there a couple
gosh.
of weeks ago with, yeah. stuff.
Mind
So,
blowing.
To
You took-
anybody who is not familiar with Red Iguana or Red Iguana 2, and there's probably a 3 and a 4 now, I don't even know, but in Salt
No,
Lake,
just two.
just the 2, and they're only separated by like a quarter mile or something.
And they're
Um,
exactly the same menu, so don't
Oh.
think you're getting second-rate red iguana. every-
There's just less stickers
a-
on the front door at one.
Yes, that's a great tip. It's one of the best places for, a mole sauce in Mexican food you're gonna find. So fantastic. All
Yes.
right, a little tougher one here. You mentioned that the city of Salt Lake is 110 square miles. What's your favorite square mile?
Ooh.
Ooh, I can't tell you my favorite child either.
Well, we all have one. I mean, I've got 2 kids at home, and let's be real, but
I'll tell you that the City Creek, which it like comes right into the downtown core, is one of the most unique things in any capital city, I think. It's like there's a park at the entrance and then it's a wild canyon. It's wilderness. And you can literally cross the street from downtown and you're in it. So anybody who comes downtown and you've got like an hour to get on a scooter or a green bike or take the time to take a walk and go up City Creek Canyon. It's a really special thing.
excellent.
Well, I need to ask another question, but it's not about mole. I heard that almost every restaurant in Salt Lake City has a fry sauce, and that's your connection to the Arctic Circle. So who has the best? I mean, I just had to ask an Alaska question. So who has the best fry sauce?
I do at my house.
Yes.
I love
Oh.
it. We need the recipe. I love fry sauce.
Some chipotle in adobo in there with your ketchup and your mayonnaise.
Okay,
And then
okay.
just a squeeze of ranch dressing. Don't knock it till you try it.
I
So
love
see,
it.
we're close on that. When I make my own homemade fry sauce, I'm putting like a chipotle barbecue seasoning in there to have it.
Oh,
But I
yeah.
haven't done the dash of ranch.
Oh,
dressing,
ranch
so I
makes
need to work
everything
on that.
better.
Yeah.
I'm gonna think about that one though, Jess, because I'm sorry, I don't have a restaurant off the top of my mind with fry
Oh,
sauce.
you might have to do a poll, like go around and try everybody's. It'll be
I'm
the-
willing. I'm willing.
The
to
mayor's
sacrifice.
fry sauce fry off. It'll be great.
So you
You know,
mentioned,
I
so go
thought
ahead.
maybe I'd have time for that kind of stuff. There's no time for that.
Of course you don't.
Pandemics, lakes drying up,
Trees.
can't do top 10 fry sauce. So you talked about, you being 30 in your 30s, having tattoos. So when you think your terms are up as mayor, do you think you'd rather get a tattoo of the city's preamble to the zoning code or the city charter?
Oh my gosh. I hadn't thought of words. Because I'm in my 40s now, so things change and the shape of words could shift. there. But we have a really amazing city hall building, if you haven't seen it.
Oh yeah.
Pretty spectacular. I think Pittsburgh's reminds me of ours, but
Mm.
I do think about carvings on the stone of our building. Maybe I'll put some of those designs on me. But no, on the planning preamble or the original charter.
Do something like that on the sole of your feet. And,
It's a party
it
trick. You're
around.
just like, check this out.
Yeah, I'd have to take my shoes off in a meeting to read.
if somebody's coming to Utah and they only have time to visit one of the national parks, which one would you tell them?
Capitol Reef, the least
Mm.
visited one.
Oh,
Partially because you can almost have it to yourself at different times of the year, but it's gorgeous. It's so beautiful, and it's really close to my second favorite place in Utah outside of Salt Lake City, which is in the Grand Staircase next door to Capitol Reef, and that's Boulder, Utah,
Mm.
which I probably shouldn't put out onto your very far reach of the airwaves, but
We can edit that out. Yeah, I love the massive slot canyon there at Capitol Reef, to go back hiking into that and
Yeah.
those, yeah.
yeah, I think when people go to national parks, they want a moment to connect with nature. And our southern national parks, Bryce and Zion especially, but also Arches and Canyonlands at times, are so busy and limited in their capacity, and it's harder to get that chance to easily connect. Capitol Reef has it.
Your kids didn't want to go to the University of Utah. Which one, what other state school are you okay with and maybe not so okay with?
You live close enough to Salt Lake that you understand how fierce the rivalry is.
I know it.
I hear that BYU has a really good law school, so there's that, but Weber State, maybe?
Yeah, there you go. There you
At
go.
North Logan, Utah State University,
Just
ag
yeah,
school.
right. But the rivalry between the U and BYU is pretty fierce, right?
It's fierce, and I've gone to the U many times. They keep letting me come back or stay a long time. So I bleed red.
There you go. As you're wearing a red shirt today in honor of them, I'm sure, right? You're coordinated and everything.
But not coordinated with my political affiliation.
So
Oh,
I
one
have-
out of two.
So for years I've joked, and I was in a LDS Boy Scout troop growing up and have a lot of Mormon friends. But my joke's always been I wanted to get like a BYU shot glass or something.
Oh, they exist.
Just to be that. Well, we were working down in Utah. We were in Layton. We go to the Target there, and Target must have just ordered beer koozies for local universities and didn't think about it at all, because there were all of these BYU beer koozies sitting there, but all of them on clearance for 99 cents. So I made sure I got one, and when BYU comes up here to play Boise State, that's what I walk around with.
You have some
Excellent.
good beer there in Boise too.
We're doing all right. We're doing all right, but we don't have the mole sauce. We're working on that.
No, yeah, we
so,
need Red
you know.
Iguana 6 to be up here.
Yeah, right. Well, Mayor Mendenhall, we want to wrap this episode up. We know you got a lot of other far more important things to do than this, but we can't thank you enough for your time. And for everybody out there, I'm telling you, man, this is a mayor to keep your eye on. She's doing fantastic things down there and leading not only her city, but I think much of the state of Utah. Probably, I don't know if you've got, I guess sneak peek. Any other thoughts on, let's say 10 years from now? Are you thinking, different office?
I'm pretty focused here. I'm running again this November. I'm hoping to do one more term. But I don't know. I don't know what
All
that's
right.
my ambition, at least.
I have watched enough Sunday political shows to know that's exactly what I thought you would say. So,
I mean,
right.
the truth. This has been a delight. Thank you for having me on.
Well, and I want to say this too, because I think in our consulting work and the planning work we do nationwide, I look at when I see things like what you're doing in Salt Lake, and we can talk about how Salt Lake is doing them. That to me is a much better starting point, even if it's the exact same thing, a Boston, a DC, an LA, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, you name it, like the mega traditional metros. But if I can talk about a Boise or a Salt Lake doing it, I think that's more relatable, and especially being able to do it in a policy context that you're in both regionally and a state level. So I say, just in our knowledge, kudos for all of the advancement you've been able to make in that environment, because there's a lot of different competing interests and some working against you. So yeah, truly an honor to talk to you and hear your stories and continue watching what you're doing.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Mayor, thank you so much for your time. And to our listeners, reminder just to go to the website, www.theplanningcommissionpodcast.com. Like and subscribe. We appreciate all of your support. This has been a great conversation. We thank you so much, Mayor, for joining the Planning Commission podcast.
Thank you for having me.
All right. My fellow commissioners, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Huzzah.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you again soon. Hey, everybody. Commissioner Danley here. Would you like to see more, hear more, Well, we got you covered. Go to our website, www.theplanningcommissionpodcast.com. It's got everything you want. Guests, yep, past episodes, video, the audio, even our whiskey pairing, links to everything about all the people we've had on, books, websites, you name it. It's unbelievable. You want to reach out to us, please. We'd be more than happy to chat. You can email us, planningcommissionpodcast@gmail.com. You want to tweet at us? Go for it, @planningcommish. We're also on YouTube with the Planning Commission Podcast channel, Facebook. Heck, send us a carrier pigeon if you need to. We'd love to hear from you about ideas, guests, you name it. Thank you for listening. We appreciate it. We'll keep doing our thing. You keep doing yours. Have a good one.